Mining community, welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Bert Monro, who's the CEO of Cora Gold, a UK-based AIM-listed company who are a gold exploration company with a focus on gold exploration in Mali and Senegal. Bert has a strong background in Africa, having spent 10 years with Hummingbird Resources in senior management. So he's got a great understanding of how to develop gold mine assets in those regions. So let's get straight into this, and let's welcome Bert to the podcast. How you doing, Bert?
Yeah, good, thanks. Never better. All good, thanks.
That's good to hear. Appreciate your time, taking the time to do this podcast. So, as we always start this, I just wondered if you can give us an overview of your background before we get into the nitty gritty of you telling us a little bit more about Cora Gold.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you sort of touched on it briefly in the introduction. I took over as CEO of Cora Gold in January of last year. So I guess it's been an interesting 18 months to be doing your first stint as a CEO of a company. Before that, I spent, I think, close to 11 years, maybe just over 11 years with Hummingbird Resources. So I was originally an operations manager. So I lived out in the jungle in Liberia for a few years, overseeing some of the scout drilling programs and drilling out the maiden resource of Digby, which obviously grew to 4 million ounces. And post-IPO back in 2011, 2012, I moved back to the UK, based out of the UK, obviously flying in out of West Africa, and was in various roles, but ultimately sort of the head of BD at Hummingbird as it went through, I guess, the acquisition of Yanfolila and obviously financing it and the development of Yanfolila. So yeah, my experience has been really all West Africa, all gold over the last 12 years in the mining space, both obviously initially with Hummingbird and then obviously now with Cora, and obviously hoping to build our own mine at Sanankoro. So yeah, exciting times.
Yeah. I wondered if you can give us an overview of obviously Cora Gold, and then tell us about your obviously flagship operation in Mali.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Cora is AIM listed in London here, listed in 2017. It had been a private company operating in West Africa since 2012. A lot of the management team and a lot of the geologists and technical team have been together for well over a decade in West Africa. From the previous company they're working together with as well. So we've got a great team of guys who have worked together and girls who have worked together in West Africa, both in Mali and Senegal. They obviously came together in 2012. The IPO in 2017 was really the amalgamation of Cora with private assets, with actually taking on some of the Hummingbird non-core assets to Hummingbird as it was constructing Yanfolila. And that was how I really got involved. I was, I guess, part of the Hummingbird team that helped bring together that deal with Cora. And then I was the non-exec representative on behalf of Hummingbird for a while before I took over from John Forster, who was retiring, to take over and be CEO. So yeah, the background on Cora is really, it's been a grassroots explorer making discoveries in West Africa and looking to grow projects. Obviously, we've now honed in on our main project on Sanankoro, delivered a great scoping study on it, and obviously pushing forward towards resource growth and a feasibility study later in the year.
Okay. And Cora's obviously currently working on its largest drill program to date. How's that going? And can you tell us a little bit more about the results that you found so far?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the drill program is going great. Actually, we've done a little over 11,000 meters of the 35,000 meters so far. Just mobilizing 2 more rigs this month. So currently you've got, one large RC rig there, which can do about 8,000 meters a month. Going to get a second RC rig and a diamond rig there this month. So should have wrapped up the 35,000 meters by beginning of July time, which will be great. It's part of a process, which was essentially, we brought out a maiden resource and scoping study last year, and obviously are now trying to do a sort of an accelerated resource growth, but also increasing categorization. So this drilling is both step out drilling to obviously increase our total ounces, but also then infill drilling as well to move the categorization from inferred up to indicated. So it's been going well in terms of the meterage. Operationally, it's been great on the ground. We haven't had any issues, touch wood. And we've just released the second round of drill results there yesterday, which have been good. So we had the first round 2 weeks ago or so, and the second round of drill results yesterday. So we've had 2 good rounds of drilling. The thing we really like about Sanankoro really is that you've got a lot of oxide material. So you have oxide ore from surface to depths of anywhere from 70 meters in the north of the permit down to maybe 110, 120 meters in the south of the permit. So you've got a free digging material, which should be relatively low cost to dig up. It's got great metallurgical recovery. So you're getting up to 94, 95% recovery, both through a combination of gravity and CIL in around 4 to 6 hours time. So that has a huge amount of positives when you're moving into operations. So the intercepts we've been seeing and we've been drilling have been, you've had between 20 to 50 meter wide mineralized zones being hit of grades from sort of 1.5 to 2.5 grams a ton. So for shallow, what should be shallow low strip ratio oxides, those are some really good results.
Yeah. Obviously, ESG is a pretty important topic in mining, and obviously is pretty at the forefront of the industry at the moment. How has your relationships been with the local communities in the jurisdictions you're working with, and also obviously just not local communities but also governments?
Yeah, no, it's great, and I think it's important you raised it. It is an important part of the business. I was out at site. Obviously, it's been tricky with this, COVID and stuff. But I mean, I was out at site in December, and I was back at it again in March as well. So hoping to go again next month. So every visit I've done since I've been there, I've visited the projects we've been involved with, whether it's helping improve the local schools in those communities, putting in market gardens, clean water, other projects. So really keen to engage both in that side of it, and I think obviously with the bigger picture, I think longer term benefits of improving education as well. So I think we've got good engagement with our local communities. I think we've got good relationships with the local communities which we operate within. Always looking for ways to improve, always looking to do things better if we can, and learn from other people and look to improve it. But I think what we've done for the stage we're at has been great. In terms of local government, we recently just had our main permit renewed for an additional 9 years. So in that respect, we were one of the first groups in the country to get the updated exploration permit post the new mining code in Mali. So that was really pleasing for us to get, and hopefully a good sign of our, I guess our position in Mali, and I guess our position and place in Mali really.
Yeah, and obviously continuing on with ESG. Obviously, you've worked in Africa for over 10 years. How have you seen ESG sort of develop? So companies obviously improving their standards across the board. How have you seen it developed, and obviously moving into the future?
I think I'd like to think, certainly my experience at Hummingbird before Cora, now at Cora, I mean, it has always been something which has been central to how we've felt it's the right way to operate and to do things the right way. I think the shift has actually been, it's just getting more visibility. So, institutional investors are more interested to hear about it and want to understand how and what you're doing. So I think, certainly, my experience directly with Hummingbird and obviously now with Cora, I don't think we've necessarily, hopefully you're always looking to improve, but I don't think we were doing a bad job 10 years ago in Liberia. I think obviously you're looking to always improve it and things move on. But I think it's certainly getting a lot more headlines publicly, and I guess people are more conscious of it and looking to sort of quantify and qualify it. But I think actually operationally, I think a lot of mining companies have been doing a good job for a lot longer than it's been visible. They maybe just haven't shouted about it, and that's maybe partly the mining industry needs to probably be maybe less embarrassed about the fact that they maybe digging a hole in the ground to remove the minerals, and then look at all the positive impacts they have both on the ground and obviously the wider sphere. So yeah, I think there's two sides to it, I suppose.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned COVID. How's that affected your company and operations? Obviously we're over 15 months in since it really sort of started. How's that affected you, the company, and
yeah, I mean, I guess look, I mean, I took over as CEO in January, and obviously the primary job of any boss is to make sure his employees are safe and healthy, right? So, pretty soon, within 3 months of taking over, suddenly there was obviously something which was pretty new for everyone to deal with. So, I think the team have done a great job at site. I mean, I'm really pleased with how they've reacted, how they've changed sort of slightly how the camp's laid out and the protocols and the systems to make sure that we can operate drill programs and exploration programs safely and in a way that people are comfortable with it, minimizing risk to everyone on site. So I'm really pleased with how the team's adapted and how they've dealt with it. I think for Cora, Cora's never had an office in the UK or outside of West Africa. It's always been very much every dollar goes into the ground in Africa. Don't waste money on any sort of corporate excess in that regard. So I was working from home from January. There's only 2 of us based out of the UK. Everyone else is at site. Predominantly Malian employees. We've got 1 expat in country overseeing stuff. So for us, in a way, COVID didn't change the way we operated the business, because we were working remotely, traveling to site when we needed to, meeting up in neutral destinations if we needed to before. So I guess in some ways we were used to kind of video calls and WhatsApp calls and whatever else everyone does. I think obviously from a operational perspective, obviously it wasn't perfect. We had a drilling program going on in Senegal, which had to get paused last year at one stage due to COVID. Thankfully, no one got it in our team or anything. It was more just, local government changing the rulings about operating at the time. But so, it has impacted us in a minor way, but thankfully, and touch wood, we haven't had any significant impact in terms of delivering our projects to the timelines or to the budget we've been saying we would.
Yeah, and obviously you've been flying backwards and forwards to Africa. How has Africa, as I suppose, as a continent, or even some of the jurisdictions that you've been working in, how have they coped with COVID? Has it been, I wouldn't say pretty plain sailing, but have they sort of coped with it pretty well?
Oh, look, I mean, I think there probably hasn't been as many studies done and as many eyes pouring over it, and obviously nowhere near as much testing as we're doing. So I think whilst the cases have probably been optically, a lot lower in West Africa, I guess you haven't necessarily got a true sense of the picture because they aren't doing the level of testing. I mean, two things which obviously West Africa had probably going for it from the COVID perspective is, one, it isn't a mass tourist destination, whereas areas of Southern Africa probably took a lot more tourists, and probably they had more international travel coming, which probably meant that COVID was much worse in parts of Southern Africa. And secondly, there is a much younger population in West Africa, and ultimately, as we know now, certainly with the data, if you're under the age of 60, your risk of getting seriously ill or dying from COVID is really very limited. So I think they probably benefited from the fact they've generally got a younger population, and there was less international travel. I mean, there aren't really significant international hubs where people are flying in and out of, and a sort of a vector to spread the virus. So thankfully, obviously, whilst they have had some deaths and infections from it, I think they have been not as badly affected as other parts of the world.
Yeah. Obviously, the price of gold had a sort of all-time high in early August, and it obviously has come off a little bit since then. How do you see this as, or how do you see this as a positive momentum continuing over the course of the next 4, 5, 6 years?
Yeah, I mean, look, in our scoping study, we ran our numbers as a base case at 1,500, and then showed sort of 1,400, 1,600 numbers as well. And the project looked to be making very good money at $1,500 gold. I don't want to give you some great macroeconomic sort of thesis on my views on the gold price. I think that's probably for other people to do. If I can look to build the lowest cost operation possible, you're always going to be maximizing your margin, whatever the gold price. But I think it's pretty clear, and I think if you look at any of the banks or other organizations which are forecasting this, all of them are generally forecasting it for it to be north of 1,750 with a sort of 3+ 4 year view. So for me, the gold price at 1,800, or give or take 1,800, operations should be making a lot of money at this stage, at this price. And obviously, I think gold equities offer investors great leverage into the gold price. So yeah, I think the gold price is historically good at the moment, and I see no reason that it would be going downwards. I think it will probably stay where it is or go upwards, in my view.
Yeah, I agree with you there as well. Obviously, this is your first CEO position. How's it been during your time since you took the helm? And you obviously mentioned you've been out to site a few times. How have you spent your time out on site?
Yeah, I mean, answering the first bit first, I mean, yeah, it's been great. I mean, what an honor and responsibility to be asked to be CEO of a company. You've got, I've got a great team under me who have been in place, long before me at Cora, and have been operating really well. So I guess what a great opportunity to sort of steer the ship and look to move Cora through the next stages of its development, and hopefully, through the feasibility study at the end of this year and into construction next as we move towards turning Sanankoro into a producing gold mine. So I mean, it's been a great experience for me. I've loved it, and it's been a great opportunity to have. Obviously, yeah, the pandemic threw up some a few curveballs for everyone, I guess. Thankfully, none of our staff have had any serious illness from it. The guys on the ground really, Siaka Kumar, our country director, to thank for that. He quickly put in place some good COVID protocols and have reacted and adapted to it. So, really they've done a great job to continue to be able to deliver exploration programs and really positive results through it. I mean, in terms of traveling, obviously I'd have loved to have been to site more. During most of last year, I didn't go to site. Obviously, we were kind of restricted in the UK from doing that. But when it did open up more, I went in the last quarter of last year. Obviously, you've got to do your quarantinings in both ways and lots of testing and everything else. So, it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's worth it in my mind. It's important and integral to doing the job, is being on the ground and seeing it and understanding it and seeing the guys. And girls, I should say. So yeah, I think for me it's important. I mean, obviously it is a bit, it's more inconvenient traveling now than it was before COVID, but I think that's a small price to pay for the benefit and the benefit of getting there.
Yeah, and obviously, as we mentioned, it is your first CEO position. Is it what you expected? Obviously, apart from COVID, but is it what you expected? Was there any challenges that have been thrown at you, again, apart from COVID, that you didn't foresee in obviously becoming the CEO?
I mean, I guess always challenges, and I guess that's good. It's why you want the job. And I think, if building mining projects was easy, I guess everyone would have done it before you. So I suppose that's part of the enjoyment of the job is sort of seeing challenges, or seeing them before they hit you and getting ahead of them. So yeah, we've obviously had some logistical and operational challenges, partly because of COVID. You've obviously had personnel challenges, guys trying to rotate out on leave and how you manage that and things. So there have been lots of additional challenges thrown at us through COVID, obviously managing consultants, contractors, staff in a safe way. So I suppose those have been additional challenges thrown at us. Obviously there's always a whole host of things. It's one of the things which is really exciting about the sector, whether you're dealing with permitting on one side, or logistical challenges, or drilling, or dealing with how the resource growth's coming, or drill results. There's so many different, or the whole ESG piece as well, as you said, the relationships with communities and how that develops, and how you plan that both sort of short, medium and long term. So it's a very multifaceted industry which has lots of parts to it. So I guess the enjoyable part of being the CEO is you get to see all of it, whereas before, my role with Hummingbird, I guess, was more in one particular silo where you were more focused. So I suppose stepping back and engaging more with all aspects of it has been an enjoyable part of it. And I guess challenges is just part of the job, just to sort of overcome as they hit you.
Yeah, I know obviously as the CEO, as a company, are you looking at any mergers and acquisitions, or looking to joint venture with any companies, or looking to explore any other opportunities?
Well, I guess if I was, I couldn't tell you anyway, Rob. But look, I think as a company, you're always looking to grow. I think our organic pipeline for growth is excellent. We've got around 1,100 square kilometers of permit area, which is frankly massive. We've got a great band of permits in the Yamfilila belt in southern Mali. So our main asset's called Sanankoro. The main permit is Sanankoro, but there's 4 other contiguous permits which form a block, which is our Sanankoro project area. We've also got a kind of donutting of permits around the Yamfilila gold mine. It's a nice technical expression for you there, Rob. Yeah. Which is good. They've got obviously very prospective area and good neurology to an operating mine, which is great. And we've also got a block of permits up in West Mali and into Senegal in that Kenyaba window, which has arguably been the most prolific gold belt in West Africa, potentially Africa over the last 30 years. So we've got great organic growth potential, I believe. I mean, the industry's seen some mergers and some acquisitions of late, and I always see there is always merit for it potentially at the right time for the right group. But I think at the moment we've very much got our head down. We've got a very defined strategy that we're delivering to, and obviously keeping our focus on delivering that, which we think will maximize shareholder return.
Yeah, and as a conclusion, I just wondered what the outlook over the next foreseeable future is for Cora Gold, and especially if any investors are listening to this podcast, why would they invest in Cora Gold?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of I guess milestones this year and news flow, we're going to be drilling through till July, which means that we'll have a steady flow of drill results on a hopefully kind of fortnightly or certainly every 3 weeks or so basis up until, let's say you've got a 4-week lag to when you finish drilling to get results. So up until the end of July, you should be having a pretty steady flow of drill results. On the back of the completion of that drilling and getting all the results, we'll be bringing out an updated resource. Hopefully we're aiming, fingers crossed, for a bigger resource, and also one which has been upgraded into a M&I categorization as part of the beginning of a feasibility study. So we're kicking off various constituent parts of the feasibility study already. With the diamond rig, we're starting the geotech drilling in the coming month, and aiming to complete a feasibility study by the end of this year. So plenty of news flow this year with the feasibility study. I think importantly and worth talking about briefly, we actually signed a financing package last year with a group called Lionhead, who is a large family office out of Cape Town, which are linked with our largest shareholder. And that finances the project based on the scoping study economics on completion of a feasibility study, if that makes sense. So the financing package looked at ultimately at the capex in the scoping study, and it fully funds that capex based on the scoping study. So on the assumption your feasibility study comes through in a similar vein, that would kick in on completion of that feasibility study and finance the project through into production. So I think we sit in a very unique situation for a junior at the stage we're at, because there are lots of good-looking projects out there with decent-looking numbers. I think what hopefully separates us from some of the other guys who are operating there is we've got some very strong shareholders who have been very supportive through fundraisers over the last 2 or 3 years. But you then also got this conditional financing package, which is sat there and leaves us in a pretty enviable position on delivery of our feasibility study at the end of this year, as we're targeting to do in Q1 next year, to be in a good position as we're going through the permitting of the project and looking to finance it.
Yes, certainly. And it looks like it's exciting times ahead, and you've got everything put in place, it seems, and it's just a matter of time of getting those drill results, working through those drill results, and moving forward with the project. But everything seems really positive.
No, we certainly hope so. Look, we certainly hope so. We're super excited about it. The team are really enjoying being busy with the rig at site, and I'm looking forward to catching up with them when I go out next in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, no worries. But really appreciate your time in doing this podcast. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions, how can they go about doing that? And are you across any social media?
So we've obviously got there's Cora's on Twitter and LinkedIn, so they can reach out on Cora Gold on Twitter and LinkedIn. They can also email the company. So if you email info@coragold.com, myself or Craig or our head of exploration Norm can get back to various questions depending on what they're targeted. So you can directly get in touch via Twitter or LinkedIn, I guess, or also email in the company info@coragold.com. So those are easy ways to get in touch with us.
Yeah, certainly. And an audience that are listening to this, appreciate if you can pass this on to other people in the industry, especially if you're working out in West Africa or even in the gold space. Appreciate if you can share and like this podcast. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, again, if you can like and share below. But really appreciate your time in taking the time to do this podcast. And it seems an exciting story ahead, and wish you all well in the future.
Pleasure, Rob. Cheers. Thanks a lot. Good to talk to you.
No worries. And until next time, happy mining.